So we're going to try and make a comic about how to make comics featuring characters while they're making a comic. It's kind of meta and all over the place. This is our first planning stage. So let's take a walk to the Geek Shop.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Geek Shop. Again, I'm Chetan, and joined with me is Chris. Say hi, Chris.
Hey, everybody.
So, Chris, what are we going to talk about today?
So it's funny because I had this idea. I notionally, I'm not going to say I had this idea because I think we both had this idea at some point. And then now, like, this podcast has kind of been going on for a little bit. I think it's sort of going to work out. But I suggested recently this idea that we maybe do a comic book about how to write, how to publish. I don't want to say how to write, how to draw, but how to publish indie comic books.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I've been, that's a subject matter that every creator has gone through.
Yeah. I feel like we've been talking about this enough that like we actually know like the subject points because it's very easy.
We've gone through every steps of it. That's the good part.
Yeah. And we've even had a few times, like a few interviews with people, so we've sort of seen how they go through at least the creative process side of it. So I think it'll be an interesting comic. But I think part of it too is we have to make the actual comic fun. Like obviously understanding comics is probably like the ultimate in that sort of idea of like a comic book about making comic books. And part of the thing I like about that comic book is it's fun, too. Like, you don't even have to be into comic books to like reading that.
To like it, yes, that's it.
And so I was hoping we could sort of, obviously maybe not do exactly what he's done, because that's, he's
But
brilliant.
on the other hand, like our episode interview with Emil from who does synthetic comic, he was surprised on some of the things that we were doing, and like even printing wise.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of knowledge that, talking to a lot of different creators, everyone else, you're getting ideas how people create from, let's say, from thumbnails to the final printing process. And it's a lot of those processes people are kind of, have ideas on what to do, but not know where to get the resources.
Yeah. And I think there's also sort of like, there's a lot of people who are experts in certain areas, or not, specialize in certain areas. But then when it comes to other parts, it's difficult. And one of the things I think, because both of us have actually published a book from beginning to end all by ourselves, pretty much.
Definitely.
So at least like you learn that there's just so much you have to know. Like there's from like mathematics of like your sizing to talking to printers or going with a digital publisher to like creating a story and drawing it.
And I think the good advantage is, like, especially with two of us doing our own comics, publishing, printing, and online comics, is we've grown up with the old school attitude of how to do comics, and now it's kind of changed, not completely changed, but the fundamentals are still there. But some of the things have changed that would be good. Some people might not know. It's, where, like printing processes now, it's changed, drastically changed,
It has drastically changed, but it's also not changed if you want it. Like, it's still okay to go to a photocopier and, photocopy a zine if you want to. Like, that's still a doable process.
No, it's true, but that's a perfect example. Now, side note, I'm currently scanning my mini comics, and I'm looking at the printing and all this, and here's the situation with the mini comics. I'm rescanning all my TikTok Tom mini comics, and I'm going to collect them into a trade. Looking at the pages and stuff like that, and I'm going, wow, this is, some of the effects, some of the printing quality I got from the 90s, early 90s, it was the cheapest end of, they had high-end photocopiers, Xerox and Minolta or whatever other companies you want to call, whichever ones they were. But the quality of the photocopies was so bad But in a way, for an independent comic, it looked good because it made it look, you know, there was it, if you want to call it random chaos, it made it look good. Now the advantage of photocopiers nowadays, especially black and whites and colored ones, or black and white, is you can get near perfect print quality.
Yeah, it's true. It's almost more like a scanner scanning something like a
Scanning,
photographic level,
yeah.
and then printing it at photographic level, even though it's not like the actual Xerox thing where it's like about the powder connecting to the black off the light and everything like that. So it's not like that anymore.
And depending on how much of a like solid black you had, chances are the powder wouldn't stick to that paper all the way through, and you get these speckled effects. And sometimes it made the artwork look much better.
Yeah, but I think this is the advantage we have is you and I have like photocopied zines. We've gone to print shops and we've done like Amazon and that sort of thing. Like we've done all of those.
So I think personally saying after all the episodes we've done, 20 plus episodes now, we're getting there somewhere. We've talked to a lot of creative people, gone to shows and talked to a lot of creative people, met up with a lot of creative people, and everyone seems to be surprised on what we say or what we hear from other creators. And it would be good to put all of that into a book and say, you know what, here you go. Here's what we know, and here's what we've heard, and here's how other people do it.
Yep. And I think we have the ability to make it entertaining. Like we both know how to write, talk, draw fun things, and so we can make it not. It won't just be like reading instructions for like a photocopier.
Is it going to be one of those instructional manuals that's going to be like 700 pages?
No. So I actually had an idea for like an overarching way of making it an entertaining story out of it by giving like sort of a secondary level to it. And so I thought it's a comic book featuring us. So we'll be characters in the comic book. Okay? And, we can also make our own characters have appearances. That's okay too. But the idea would be that basically the first chapter we'll learn that everybody in comic books has some kind of power, right? Whatever it is. And, you could argue that Archie doesn't have a power, but he has the power to stay young forever. So, whatever his powers. So both of our powers, your power is that you have the ability to speak to the reader through the comic book. And my power is I can eat a lot of candy.
Okay.
So basically, every shot I'll just be munching on something. So like, and basically the idea is that you'll be able to actually speak to the reader. I'll speak to you, and you'll sort of be like the linchpin between what's going on in the comic and actually talking to the reader.
Perfect. Love that idea.
And so then what we can do is we can even if we decide to go for it, like if we go like talk about color, we could consider interviewing somebody like Tom, and we could bring him into the comic book.
Well, that's it. We have so many different creators we could talk to about inking, coloring, writing, penciling, printing, anything.
So like if we want, we can actually bring those people into the comic book.
Yes.
Rather than sort of saying, oh, our friend Tom said this, goes, oh, there's our friend Tom. He's doing some watercolor. Why are you using so much purple when it's a person? He can talk about how it's good for shadows and stuff like that. Like anything like that. Like you can get into that thing, and because we'll be in it, we can bring like our friends into it, the people that we sort of talk to about it, but we can also bring our characters into it. If we're talking about like story arcs and things like that. And so we can bring like fictional characters into it.
For the purpose of general public and people, artists, creators, and stuff, what's your idea for an end result for this book? Like, what do you want to, like, do you want to show a person from, okay, I have some how to ink books, how to draw books, how to, create comic books and stuff. So, what's your end goal for overall of the book?
I think it's not about showing people how to do every step, but it's about making sure that everybody knows about every step.
Perfect answer. That's what I was expecting.
So it's like we're not going to teach them anatomy, but we're going to make
No,
sure
because
that
we're going to assume that everyone knows all the fundamentals. They know what a comic book is. They know what a script is. They know everything. So, let's forget about the origin story.
yeah. And to be honest, we can even talk about like if we want to, we can say, oh, if you need anatomy, this is maybe get a book on this. Like there's other parts, and hey, maybe we'll do a book later on that might be about specific parts of it. But the idea is like everything from like like the beginning is so you want to do a comic book, and then all the way till here's your printed comic book.
Yes, that's it. So assume that everyone knows, the starts of what we're talking about, and just jump into the middle and say, here you go. Here's what,
Well,
not jump it completely in the middle, but,
no, I think
you
it's at the
understand.
beginning, but I think it's the idea too that it's about saying, well, this is what you might have to look up, so you want to know how to come up with a storyline. You need a beginning, middle, and end. There's lots of people who have written books about how to write stories, and we can briefly talk about it, but we don't have to like focus
In
on
detail, yes, that's it.
and same with like how to write a script. It's like the first thing we can say is everybody writes scripts differently, and we'll
And
know.
one thing I've noticed over the years and talking to people is one of the main things that I've seen a lot of new books and stuff, even older books, they don't talk about is page drawing wise. Like nowadays, you don't have to draw 11 by 17.
Nope.
You could draw any size you want.
But you have to make sure you have the right aspect ratio.
Yes, you do, but still, people don't understand that. Even in the old days, like going back to, let's say, old days to me is like 1980s, because that's when I grew up reading comics, and going back to those days, 70s and 80s, some artists drew larger than 11 by 17,
Sure.
and some artists drew smaller, but you never knew that until later on in life when you start researching all of this and going, oh wow, they didn't stick to the traditional page size,
I feel
but mentally you're, when you read the books and you read articles, you're told to do it this way.
I feel like the overarching theme for this idea too is going to be, they're not. There are many ways to do this, and a lot of the ideas. And the reason, what we should try and explain in the book is like, while there are many ways to do it, this is sort of what you want for your end goal. Like a good example, like you're saying with page size, you can do any page size you want, but you probably shouldn't do every single page you do in a completely different size because it's going to make your life horrible when you scan it in.
That's it. Yes, that's a good tip. Yes.
So things like that, where it's sort of like, yeah, you can do any size you want. You can do a square book. That's totally acceptable. Like there's no rules about that. But you might want to make sure every page is square because if physically you can't make a book shift sizes per page.
That's it. Yes. And also recently I had a conversation online with Derek Barton. We're talking about laying out the book, doing layouts and stuff like that. And I made a comment about saying, I have to I've been shifting my ideas on what layout programs I use for my comic now, due to some companies and stuff charging, higher. You can't directly buy their programs anymore. You have to subscribe to them monthly, and for an average independent artist, that's expensive.
Yeah.
So for the last couple of years, I've been using Clip Studio Paint. It is a drawing program, but you could, I hate to say it, Clip Studio has a lot of features, hidden features and things you could do on it that, I never really looked into it until the last couple of years. That forced me to look into it.
Yeah.
And, for example, like, I used to do all my designs in Adobe InDesign, all the layouts. And now I can't afford to pay, those ridiculous amounts, and now I did some research and I seen people lay out books in Clip Studio, but again, there's zero tutorials on it,
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do want to, address, eventually in another video on how to do a layout in Clip Studio.
Yep. And one day I think I might do how I do my layouts and everybody will laugh at me.
Oh yes, you use
I use
was
like
it
three
Word?
different. I use 3 different pieces of software to
So,
pretty much build my page.
any graphic designer who's watching, especially Massimo, please listen to how Chris lays out his books in Microsoft Word, and what's the other program?
I use Photoshop, Word, and I technically do all my coloring and stuff on my tablet, so on Procreate.
Okay, the other two programs I understand, but the Word one, that one I'm just still
One day,
baffled.
one day I'll do a video about that, and I'll show you how I do it. And I'm finishing drawing Blue Orchid right now, chapter three. Learn how to count, Chris. 3, and when I get to the coloring stage of it, I'll do a video of my sort of putting it together. So it's ridiculous, but it works. But it's ridiculous.
Okay, so for this idea for how to create a comic book from start to end, it's going to be a lot of interesting. I'd love to see and hear from anyone who's listening to this video on how they do their comics, because you know what, we could take, it's not just you and I doing this, it's a community of people, everyone. It'd be good to get everyone's input on how they do things.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different ways of doing things, and I think definitely getting a consensus as much as possible. I think I think that we do definitely, and there's people who are also better at other parts of it. There's parts of it that I'm horrible at, that people are better at. That I would, as we said, I think when it comes to using digital layout, you're gonna be the guy who's gonna, my only thing is gonna be, well, if you don't know how to do anything, you can really sort of scrap it together. But
yeah, but you know what? We've gone through the old. You and I have been. We've done, cut and paste and paste it onto a smaller board and then photocopy it to digital layout. So we've experienced both, and we've done professional full color process printing also. So we've gone through all the stages.
The only thing I'll say about professional 4-color processing is I've never done it alone.
Oh no, same here. Because
that's so out of my league.
Yes, same here, because the technical aspects of it kind of throws me off on some of it, and especially the old days printing processes with the colored plates and having the different plates, and again, this is before the digital age. Yeah.
The issue of Blue Orchid, I did a special issue for. Actually, I can pull up a copy. I have one right behind me. I have a whole stack of them. So this comic that I made is a special Blue Orchid. It's the Myanmar special. So this is a
and that's the one that was done in the 4-color process printing, right?
Yeah, and I actually I have pictures of it too. I have pictures of the plates.
I do remember that. Yes,
as they were doing it, and so, but yeah, putting something like that together for me, like when I saw them with the plates and organizing that and everything like that, I was like, I don't even know. I remember bringing my files in, and they're like, oh, do you want to do the color separations yourself? And I'm like, I have no idea how to do color separations for a plate printer. I don't even know where to start with that.
Now, let me ask you this. Actually, that's a good question. In the Asian countries like that, did they do digital color separations, or did they do it old school color separations?
It's digital. They are definitely digital. It's not, like the plates are done digitally, I think, off of digital files and everything like that. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They have enough tech in most places. There are some printers. There's a couple of streets here where they have like old print shops, like really old.
No, but that's what I mean. Yeah, in Asian countries you see them, and that's why I was asking that question, because I have seen, you have to, a lot of them are not up to date on and a lot of those countries, like smaller print shops in smaller villages can't afford Photoshop and Adobe programs to do some, all the, post-production stuff.
Yeah, or they don't have electricity all the time.
Yes, that's another issue. Yes.
So like I've been to print shops, like I've traveled around, and like when I see a print shop, I poke my nose in whenever I can, because it's just kind of I love printers. They look so cool. No idea how they work totally, but I just love looking at them. And I've gone in where I've literally seen people cranking the printers.
And the good thing is they have those old massive, all made out of steel, printers.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Oh yeah, very. I've seen those, and it's like it's like I want to use one of these.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because generally, if I go in those shops, they look at me like, "Why would you want to see this ancient relic?" And I'm like, "Because it's an ancient. It's like looking at dinosaur bones for me."
Yes, that's it. And especially, because we're interested in that type of a, you know, working process, you want to see it in, working in its full capacity because we don't get to see that here. I mean, only time you'll see one of those things is probably, I hate to say it now, is probably in a museum now.
Yeah, and the funny thing was when I got this blue orchid printed, they took me into the printing place, and it's a big metal printer. It's digital still, like for doing the plates, but it's a big old metal printer. And they were like apologizing that it was going to take a while because, they had to they wanted to run, they were running tests for me. They invited me down there so when my color, just to do color tests to make sure I was happy with the look of it. And they were apologizing that it was taking long. And I'm like, I would literally sit here all day and watch you print my book if you would let me. But I would just feel weird, just sitting here all day. But I would have no problem sitting here all day watching
Yeah,
my book get printed. Like, I'd love it. So,
because we don't see that here, like
yeah.
especially in the Western world, you don't see that.
And even if you do, it's like I've been to a printing place like in Ottawa when I was living there. I got a bunch of stuff printed, quite a bit. Everything from I used to get like canvas stuff printed, like fine art stuff, and photos. And I went to this big print place. It was just in a big warehouse in the middle of nowhere, and it was just like huge industrial process. And I mean, there's definitely an art to it for sure, but it's like it's a little more empty. Whereas when I got the blue orchid printed, I was like it was an old mansion that had like dilapidated that they turned into a printing place. It's
I
just
was
like
watching. I was watching a YouTube video on this company in San Francisco, one of the only ones I guess left in North America, where they're doing books and posters, old style printing, like block printing. Like they
that's
would
all.
take the, make lead typefaces and everything, put them together, everything, and they show the guy, manually putting out um, all the text in order, doing the sample printing, and the video was interesting. Watching it, love seeing that type of stuff, and they were saying it's one of the I guess few or only companies left in North America that's still doing it old style printing like that, where even the machines were old and the complete process from start to end was all old school.
In Toronto, it's in your neighborhood. I think it's at the Mackenzie House or Mackenzie Estate or something. Like it's Mackenzie King, who used to be the editor of the Toronto Star, like way back. In his house, in like the museum that is his house, they actually had like a Gutenberg. It isn't a real Gutenberg printer, but a Gutenberg style printer in the basement, and they would do
Oh
demonstrations on it once
wow,
in a while. So
wow.
I don't know if they still have it. I mean, that was a while ago since I've been there, but they might still have one. So that would be kind of neat to check out sometime.
I remember going to some used stores, and they had the block printing letters, like a
Yeah,
set of them. And, the artist in me and the creative type in me saying, buy it, but
yeah,
bottom line is, what do I do with it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could push it all, do like little,
Yeah. Stamp
but
printing,
exactly. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that. But it's it, like I said, I think it's the Mackenzie King House or Mackenzie House or Mackenzie Estate or something. No, it isn't this. I think Mackenzie Estate's in Ottawa, but it's like the Mackenzie King House or something like that in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Has like a Gutenberg
Oh, wow.
printer in its basement, or had one at least a while ago. So it's if you get a chance, go check it out.
No, but
But yeah,
for going on what we were talking about for your idea, I think it would be interesting because again, even me at this age, when I buy, when I look at some how to draw books or even look at YouTube videos and things like that, you know, it's an ongoing learning process.
yeah.
You're learning you're learning something new every day.
And that's that I think is going to be the overarching plot of this book would be always be willing to learn, but also do it your own way. Like try and
I think
you'll
the
figure out
one
your own
lesson
way.
that I think the one lesson which learning for all these years is there's no wrong way of doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's no wrong way of doing it, and always be willing to learn new ways.
That's it. Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's going to be the continuing thing in this book that'll come up over and over again.
But here's a question for you, and this is one thing that it's like any other thing, but in our industry, creativity and printing and stuff like that. Going to give you an example, like learning to drive a car. The old school cars have very little gadgets in it. New cars have all these gadgets, everything that basically does everything for you. Now you learn the old school way because imagine if everything goes this way. Now, for creating a comic, does that apply also learning the old school way first, then doing digital and all that stuff, or do you just jump into digital?
I think you can jump into digital. I don't think you have to know the old way, but it's interesting to know how the old way did it.
That's the question I was thinking, because it's like like any other industry and stuff, learn the old school way first.
Learn it, but you don't have to know how to do it. You just have to know that. I mean, as much as you know about printing in the 80s, it's not like you could run a Gutenberg press.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Good point.
Like
Yes.
you didn't go so
Good
far
point.
back to sort of
Yes.
like learn how to run the first printing press, but you learned sort of like you picked up where you were and then and you added to it. It's like but you knew a Gutenberg press existed. You knew how it worked,
Yes,
but you just
yes.
you couldn't actually use it. So you don't have
But
to.
on the other hand, I did take classes on lithograph printing and things like that. So just to get an idea of what it's like.
Yeah, and I mean, so that you can dabble in it, but you don't have to master it. So to some degree, the book that we're creating will sort of also allow people to sort of look back and go, oh, so this is how they used to do it, and this is what's replaced how they did it that way. And they could look at that. That could be one of the things our book can provide, is that information of a little bit of sort of how we used to do it, and then how it's done now. That could be a bit of a theme too. So that way people can kind of look at it and go, oh, okay, so they used to actually cut out with scissors their pictures and glue them onto paper and stuff like that. So, but that could be a good way of doing it still. Paste ups are still a legitimate way to do art. Paste ups on a board still work. So,
Oh, the paste up stuff. I don't miss that. Honestly, I don't miss that because, before glue sticks, I was using rubber cement. Because
that stuff
because
stinks.
that was that's those thing. But that was the easiest and fastest way of doing it, and it dried fast.
Yep.
Because remember, glue sticks didn't come around till later.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know how to use rubber cement, which is surprising.
Yes, yes.
So I think, I feel like we could I also thought maybe we could build this book on this channel as well.
That's what I was thinking. Going do step by step on how we're doing this, because again, the creativity process on creating a book and start to end, whether it's a comic or how to do book, whatever, people are interested.
And the one thing we should decide is, in the story, will we mention that we're recording a podcast while writing the book? So, will it get meta, where our characters will be like, "Oh, remember we talked about that in that podcast, in that meeting?"
Yes.
We can have it sort of meet up a little bit in weird ways. So it almost be it can be read separately, but it can also be read as a companion to the episodes that we do about creating the book.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's a good idea. So I think what we should figure out now is what we need to because as much as I know you like to go without a script, and I like to go with a script, I think we need at least some kind of outline.
Oh yes, yes.
For this, so I think we should figure out. I think the first thing we need to do is figure out chapter ideas. So what do we want each issue chapter to be about? And so I think there can be an introduction just sort of to get people into the idea of the characters, and then we'll have to get into the, coming up with an idea. Like, we don't have to come up with it immediately, but maybe we can brainstorm some ideas, write a list, and then we'll present the list to each other in an upcoming episode.
Yes, I think that's the best way to do it.
And then sort of basically what we'll do is both of us will come up with some chapter ideas and just maybe like a one or two sort of, explain what your chapter is about. And we'll just see how they merge. And I'm sure we'll find similar things in all of our chapters. And then we'll be able to sort of put it together like a deck of cards. So some cards will match, some will be different, but will fit in with the other chapters.
Yes, yes.
So we'll do that. I think that's a good way to start this. And then just start like really loose that way. And if you have another idea other than us being in it and you having the superpower of talking to the audience and me having the superpower to eat sort of junk food, if you have another idea, definitely let me know.
Well,
but
between now and the next episode, we'll think about it, and this is a start. So we will, let's go from here and next step and see what happens.
Yeah. So that's we'll see.
I think now give me a week or so to let it, think it over, and I think I could come up with a lot of ideas.
Yeah, and we'll edit each other's stuff up and down and see how we can work it out.
Okay, so I guess now best thing to do is join us for another episode where we go through this in more detail, and it's going to be an ongoing episodes where we will be talking more and more about this.
Yeah, and also drop comments or anything, like if you're a creator or if you're learning how to create or you have ideas about stages for comic books, drop some comments, send us some messages through Instagram, whatever it is, because we'd be happy to hear from you.
Yeah, love to hear from you, love to hear your processes, and if you'd like to join in on a video chat on how you create your comics, you're always welcome to join us.
Definitely. The Geek Shop stores are always open.
Yes, always open 24/7. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk more next time.